Good evening, Mountaineer Nation, and welcome into the Mountaineer Effect. I'm your host for this podcast, Marcus Dean. Welcome into the broadcast right here on Geek Gorilla TV here on YouTube. Please like and share if you do enjoy the content that we provide. We certainly would be very much appreciative of that. I got here Sam here with me today here on the broadcast, the co-founder of Geek Gorilla TV. As me and my counterpart here has the happily named last week's game a good old solid kick in the nuts. What say you, Sam?
Oh yeah, it was. It was a very winnable game. I think West Virginia was a better team, top to bottom. I think they made a lot of the things we've been talking about the last few weeks. They made a lot of silly mistakes. They dropped a lot of balls, some stupid penalties. And the play calling has just not been creative. It's been a little bit bland.
All the years I've been around football and been a fan of football, I've never seen a coach so fired up after a loss. I mean, he's fired up even after a win, but when he was fired up. I mean, that was just, I don't know, man. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, he should be, and I think part of that aggravation should be internalized because he does call the plays, and my biggest thing, he's running a pro system without calling the system with pro plays, and what I mean by that is typically on first down you run, on second down, depending on your yardage, you may throw a little pass or run again. And it seems to me like, on 2nd and 6, they're taking shots down the field or throwing to the boundary. And, Daggy can't throw to the boundary. He hasn't developed that throw yet. And, even when he does nail it, the guys are dropping it. So, I think they need to stay away from the boundary a little bit. They need to stay over the middle of the field. Throwing over the middle of the field, he's not a quarterback that throws a lot of air passes or throws a lot of interceptions.
I agree. I will look for maybe like 7 to 10 yard passes. I mean, we could run anything from hook passes to like curl, and I like throwing the ball out of the backfield to Letty Brown and doing those wide receiver screens because it gets them in those playmakers' hands. I mean, we've seen this past weekend, Winston Wright he was basically the WVU's awesome offense. Him and Letty Brown and Daggy was the offense. Everybody else was dropping everything and couldn't catch COVID if they tried to. But Winston Wright had 9 catches for over 100 yards in the game. I mean, that was pretty solid. I mean, he had a great game, but it's just like they need some other players to step up and catch the ball. Sam Brown needs to step up and catch the ball. Bryce Ford Wheaton needs to step up and catch some. I mean, as much as Daggy was hitting him in the hands, hitting him in the chest plate, I mean, that's just – I could see the wide receiver coach pulling his hair out, and I could definitely see him running some extra routes and catching passes after practice.
I do want to do a shout out to number 87, the tight end, Michael Laughlin, who had 2 big catches. I think he showed in this game that he's really being underutilized. I think he had 2 receptions for about 40, 45, 50 yards.
Yep.
That's not enough. That's not enough passes for him. He moves good in space. He's big. He's got the size of a NFL quality tight end. Let's get him the ball.
He had that one, I think it was in the second quarter where they scored on. Daggy hit him up the sideline. He was wide open. That's where he got a big chunk of that yards. Then he got another one down near the goal line where he almost scored on. I mean, and he would be perfect for 50-50 balls. I mean, as much as everybody talks about, his speed and talks about how big he is, I mean, I'd like to throw it up to him, see if he can go get it.
That's the thing. It seems like we're getting really redundant, with catching the ball and the play calling and all that. It's a young team, and we understand that. Our responsibility to this podcast is to criticize what we see. And one thing that I think needs to be addressed that we haven't really talked about, that may be contributing to some of these drops is maybe some of these receivers are a little bit timid.
I think it's not necessarily their timing with Daggy because he's putting the ball on the money. I mean, they have to step up and they have to catch it. But Winston Wright, I mean, he had a heck of a ball game, but he can't be the only receiver that you can depend on. I mean, I like you said earlier, I'd love to see the tight end get more involved, and I would love to see Bryce Ford Wheaton get more involved.
That's the thing. We keep going back to that. You got to catch the ball, and they're just dropping. They're dropping more than they should be. I mean, you can account for 4 or 5 drops a game. I would take 4. I would gladly take 4 drops a game. But when you're talking about 9 drops, you're looking at if you're averaging 8 yards a pass, you're looking at 70 yards. You're looking at least a touchdown a game that you're dropping.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
You take a look at this game, and that would have made the difference.
Exactly, and also penalties is another thing that it's kind of got me scratching my head about. I mean, the penalties are getting better with each game, but there are still some nagging penalties that are just This makes you just want to they get going and they get going. Then they'll have a holding, then they'll have a legal procedure, and the one that's kind of got me scratching my head that they're still doing is the offensive false starts.
I think there's a margin of error, when it comes to mental fortitude versus jumping off sides.
Right.
But, it really is bordering on the ridiculous.
And another thing I think kind of hurt us too is when Tony Fields got ejected for the not targeting, whatever you want to call it. As Coach Brown said in his press conference, he said, honestly, I don't know how to coach it because every ref calls it different.
I think if you look back at that, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't intentional helmet to helmet. He did pull up. However, I agree with the call. There was the call as it is in college football. He did make contact with the crown of the head. Unfortunately, in college ball, that puts you in the locker room. But I think the NCAA as a whole needs to reevaluate the way that's enforced and
and kind of maybe go towards NFL model, maybe.
Yeah, I really think so because, that's a perfect example of a guy that shouldn't have got kicked out of a game because he did try to pull up. It wasn't intentional. He wasn't trying to hurt anybody. It just, sometimes that helmet-to-helmet is completely unavoidable, and I think that's a perfect example.
Exactly. And you was talking about the ridiculousness. I was, in my spare time I was going through as I was preparing for the broadcast. Folks, if you want to chuckle, go to WVU's Twitter feed on, of course, twitter.com and read some of the comments and read some of these so-called journalists. People are calling for Daggy to be replaced by Garrett Green.
Anybody that's calling for that, don't move their ass from the hole in the ground when it comes to football, because this is going to sound kind of bold, though. I kind of already put Daggy in the same category that I put Will Grier in. I knew early on Will Grier was not going to be a Heisman Trophy winner. I knew.
No.
And I knew he wasn't going to be a starter in the NFL, but what he can be is a quality backup. And I think that Daggy has the ability to do the same thing. He has the same fundamental issues that Will Grier had, and that's thrown to the boundary, and he tends to throw a little high, which that's what you call rib breakers for your receivers. You got to get the ball down. But I think Daggy, he's young enough to where they can coach that out of him. I really expect him to have a really good run with West Virginia and possibly, a good backup career in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why you couldn't expect that. Since the NCAA did say they're not counting any eligibility this year. So he technically does still have 2 years left at WVU. Whether he stays those 2 years and plays, that'll be ultimately be up to him.
The longer he has with Neil Brown, who, runs a pro style offense, the better off he'll be. I think he needs to stay as long as he can, play all that he can, and I think it'll pay off for him in the long run. Let's move on and discuss the upcoming game. I'll tell you the thing that I find really odd about this game, and for me, this falls into a trap game, just like Texas Tech, maybe more so. And that's that you're bringing in number 16 Kansas State, which I don't read too much into the rankings this year. They
No,
don't really mean a whole lot. But
no.
you are bringing in number 16 Kansas State into Motown, and they're a 3-point dog. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that. I was ready to ask you what's the Vegas spread? So WVU is favored by 3 points over Kansas State.
Yep.
And Kansas State's ranked number 16th in the country now. That tells me this. You're right. This could definitely be a trap game, but I think this is a very winnable game. A lot like the Texas Tech game. I think if we play smart, don't have anything stupid, stupid penalties, cut down on the drops, I could definitely see this as a definite win for us.
Yeah, I think I really think the keys to this game is going to be shut down the run and catch the ball. I mean, can't say any better than that. Well, I mean, that's the thing. You could predict it any way you wanted to, but I mean, we both know, Daigie's going to throw for 250. Letty's going to run for around 100.
Yeah.
Let's catch the ball, and that way we have more to predict than just quarterbacks and running backs.
Exactly.
I mean, do we want to predict how many drops? We don't want to do that.
Definitely not. I've been thinking this since the last game. I think Bryce Ford Wheaton has been really quiet, and I'm really thinking he's going to be my breakout player for this game against Kansas State, because by just watching Kansas State, and it looks like they're secondary suspect. I mean, there's no reason why Bryce Ford Wheaton should not be able to do something in this game.
My coming out player for this week, I talked a little bit about, is I think Mike O'Loughlin is going to have a good week. I think they're going to. I think they're going to watch tape, and they're going to see, how well he blocks, and two, how well he moves in space to be a big guy. He really does move well in space. I think they need to get him the ball, see what the big man can do. Let's get him down the field. And then, of course, that'll open up for your swing passes out on the perimeter. And let's stay away from the boundary.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially early on in the game. I know Daigie's got to develop that skill, but there's a time and a place for that, and it's not
right.
In the middle of the first quarter. This is a must win. They must win this game.
I agree 100%. This is a must win for us. We have to find a way to beat Kansas State. I mean, I said in the beginning of the season at 6-4 was going to be my prediction. 6-4, 5-5, 7-3 if we were lucky. But I'm sticking to my guns. I'm still feeling at least 5-5, 6-4. 6-4 is really where it's at for me right now.
Yeah, I'm stuck on 5. TCU, has kind of been up and down,
right?
And they've performed well against really good teams, like Iowa State and Texas. Margin of victory, both of those. I think they lost 3 points to Iowa State, and they lost 2 points to Texas. So they've got the ability to move the ball and score some points. So that's already, for me, in my eyes, better than what I thought they were.
Yeah, exactly. And with Iowa State too, Iowa State's kind of an up and down squad too. But I mean, I still, like we said in the beginning of the year, I still think Iowa State's my pick to win that Big 12 this year.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's had a lot of close games. They're fixing to get into the meat of their schedule too. I think this week they play Texas. I can't really pull for Texas, but if Oklahoma State lost to Texas, it wouldn't hurt my feelings a whole lot.
Yeah. Yes, I think, like we mentioned, this is going to be definitely a winnable game. I think it's a must win, and I think we do somehow, some way. I'm to the point. I don't care if it's by 30 or by 1. We got to get this W.
I'm going to make a little bit of a prediction with this game. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be a 3-point game either way. I look for it to be a really high scoring game. The over under is 51. I think we're going to go way over that. I think it's going to be a really, really high scoring game. I'm thinking 58, 55. I think it's going to be that high. I think they're going to go over 100. I think the scoreboards are going to light up this weekend.
Okay.
But I think it's going to still, it's still going to be a nail biter. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be probably the most exciting West Virginia game they've had this year.
My bold prediction: Letty Brown. I'm looking for Letty Brown to have a big bounce back. Well, he still had a great game last week, so I can't really call it a bounce back game. I think I'm thinking that Letty's going to bust one this week against K-State, 50-yard plus. That's my bold prediction. I'm not going to go quite as high on the score prediction. I'm going to say 41-38 Mountaineers.
Well, there you have it. Bold predictions.
Thank you for watching the Mountaineer Effect right here on Geek Gorilla TV, right here on YouTube. Like I said before, if you like what you saw, like what you heard, please like and share. And until next time, let's go Mountaineers.